Now, a pumped-up David Cameron took to the campaign trail today, insisting he would fight for people as Prime Minister. His energetic performance follows accusations the Tories have been running a pretty lacklustre campaign. So will this give the party the boost it needs to win and, of course, keep Mr Cameron in number 10? Well, he joins me now live in the studio. Prime Minister, a very good evening to you. Thank you for coming on. Before we start about the election campaign, I know you've been watching those terrible events happening in Nepal because of the earthquake. What do you make of the situation there?
Well, these are heartbreaking scenes, and you just think about those who've lost loved ones and also those British citizens who've got friends and family out in Nepal who want to know what has happened to them. What we're doing is very carefully coordinating our response. We've sent our search and rescue teams out already. We've got another C-17 loaded with supplies and also some of the Gurkha regiment, obviously from Nepal, to go out and help. And we've raised already and spent £5 million, but we'll do more if we have to. And obviously trying to do everything we can to find out what has happened to British nationals who we haven't currently accounted for.
I'm sure that we will certainly monitor the situation. So let's get on to the election campaign. We're in the last full week of campaigning now. You, as a party and also as a leader, have thrown everything you can at this campaign, but the polls are not moving. Why do you think your message isn't getting through?
Well, I think it's been a very difficult few years for people after that appalling crash. A lot of people lost their jobs, a lot of businesses went under, and we've been rebuilding since then. The figures are good, 2 million new jobs, 750,000 new businesses. But I think people are taking their time in this election campaign really to think through how they feel about what's happened. But there's time still to persuade people that we're on the right track. Well, that's my view. We are on the right track, and we can turn this good news in our economy that we've seen into good news in people's lives.
And
my message is, stick with it, the team, and stick with the plan. It's working, and we can do some great things in the next 5 years.
Because you believe confidently that you can win 23 votes on top of the
23 seats, yes.
Excuse me, a few more votes in terms of the seats that you already have to win a majority government. You have 10 days to do that. Where's the support going to come from? Because at the moment there is no evidence of it.
Well, we can see we hold, as you say, over 300 seats. We need to hold those, win 23 more, and we have an overall majority, and that would give what I think the country needs, which is strong, decisive and accountable government, rather than the nightmare of a sort of Ed Miliband SNP tie-up. But obviously, as you say, the polls have been very close, but we see evidence on the ground that people want to stick with the plan that's working. They can see the economy is getting better, and they, I think, have responded very positively to what we've said about more money for childcare to help families who want to go back to work, making sure we protect the pension as we've done these last 5 years, and keeping going with job creating and cutting people's taxes.
Let's talk about policies in a few minutes' time. Today you said you're pumped up, you're ready for the fight. We were listening to you in one of your campaign speeches this morning. This weekend just gone, though, you were criticised for maybe not having enough passion by some of even your party donors, saying that your heart's not in it.
No, well,
is your heart in it?
It absolutely
How
is.
much do you want this job?
I want this very badly. It's not about me, though. It's about the jobs for people in our country. I feel we've done, in the last 5 years, there's been a lot of shared sacrifice. Difficult decisions had to be made, but we're on the right track. 2 million more people in work, 1,000 jobs a day. I want to make sure we build on that platform, that base, that foundation, and don't let it go to waste. So I feel very fired up about it because I see a risk that we go right back to square one, back to the borrowing, the taxing, the waste that we had in the past. Don't let the last 5 years go to waste.
But Bill Clinton famously said, if you want to be re-elected, as you do, you have to be hungrier than you were 5 years ago. You've already told the electorate you're not looking for 3 terms, just 2. Are you hungrier than you were 5 years ago?
I am hungrier than I am 5 years ago because
Why?
5 years ago, 5 years ago, we had a job of inheriting a mess and having to turn the economy round. And I feel very excited now that having, got people back to work, got the deficit down in half, got the country growing faster than most of the rest of the Western world, there's a real opportunity now to do what I came into politics to do, which is help people change their lives, make sure people who want to work can, make sure people can build that future, own a home of their own, get a good school place for their children. That's what fires me. Now, I'm in this to win it, but it's not about me and my job. It's about, actually, the millions of people in our country who want a better life.
Let's talk about campaign tactics now. There's been a letter published in the Telegraph today, signatures from 5,000 small business leaders. It's emerged now that one of those people didn't actually give you permission to use their signature. And the email came from Conservative Party headquarters. I mean, it undermines it a little bit, doesn't it?
I don't think so. Look, even 4,999 is a huge number of businesses. And these are small businesses who've come out and very clearly said, look,
This is meant to be a neutral letter, and it came from your party headquarters.
No, it's absolutely. It is businesses saying they support what we're doing. And I think it is worth listening to the people that create the wealth and the jobs and the investment in our country. And I can't remember an election where small businesses, entrepreneurs, startups, sole traders, and big businesses as well have all been so unanimous that the Labour Party really represent a risk because of their plans for more spending, more taxing, more borrowing.
Do you think these letters work? Do you think these stunts work?
Well, I don't think it's a stunt. I mean, look, in the end, an economy depends on the energy and the enterprise of small businesses. We need that to pay for the hospitals and the schools, as well as to create the jobs. Are these people worth listening to? I think absolutely.
Another criticism has been that your campaign's been very long. I think it's 3 weeks now, as well as all the other party leaders, and it's very tightly controlled, Mr. Cameron. I mean, when was the last time you met someone who hadn't been handpicked by your campaign team and had an impromptu conversation?
Well, this morning I was out I was out in Finchley, out visiting a school.
Who did you meet? Can you remember their names?
I met lots of teachers, I met lots of students, I met parents and governors. I mean, I've done basically this campaign. I've done everything from walkabouts to office meetings to public meetings to rallies. You do everything, and people get plenty of chance to ask you questions and make up their minds.
OK, let's have a look at the policies now. We've had lots and lots of emails from our viewers who want to pass comment and ask you questions. This from Terry Phillips-Smith via Facebook. He says, what is David Cameron going to do to help the disabled in the next Parliament and not discriminate against them, as he's made it a purpose to do so far? What's your message to Terry?
The most important thing is to enable disabled people to live as full lives as possible, including getting a job. In the last year, there are 141,000 more disabled people in work in our country. So let's keep the excellent new benefit we've got, the personal independence payment, which means that more of the most disabled are getting the higher rate of benefit, but let's help more disabled people get into work.
Right, but can you guarantee, Terry, live on this programme tonight, that support for people living with disabilities will be guaranteed, it will be protected,
yes.
it's not going to be cut in
That's
the
right.
next
Personal, we've just introduced this new disability benefit, which is better than the old disability living allowance.
And that is protected?
And that is protected.
OK, because he has a wider point here, which is you have earmarked £12 billion worth of welfare cuts. I think it's 2 or 3 billion you've said where you're going to get the money from. But there's a big black hole in your manifesto, isn't there? £10 billion worth of those welfare cuts. You're not telling us where the axe will fall.
Well, what we're saying is that we saved £20 billion of welfare in the last Parliament.
What about the next 5 years?
Well, we need to save half that level, another 10 billion, once we've accounted for the change we've already taken. Well, what we need to do is go on getting people back into work. We've got 2 million people into work in the last Parliament. If we get another 2 million in the next Parliament, 1 million more than many forecasters expect, that will lead to a reduction in the benefits.
Does that account for the 10 billion?
No, that accounts for some of it. Then we've also got to keep going, introducing universal credit, the new system of benefit, which means that every extra hour you work pays you. Look, why are we reforming welfare? We're doing it because we want to encourage people into work. The best route out of poverty is work. And the parties that don't want to reform welfare, they will either have to put up your taxes and cut your pay, which is what I think Labour would do, or they have to make much deeper cuts into departments like health. And I want to see the NHS expanded. That's the reason for saying we should be trying to get people off welfare and into work, just as we've done in the last Parliament.
Another policy, let's try another one. Where does child benefit come into this? Because the Institute for Fiscal Studies say that if you abolish child benefit in the next government, if you're re-elected, by anyone who had a low income, you could save nearly £5 billion. But you've already cut it. So
no, what we did is we did, in the last Parliament, take child benefit away progressively from people on higher incomes, because it's very important that the people who earn more make a greater contribution.
So that's the past. Could it be cut again in the future?
We're believers in child benefit. We've had to freeze it, but child benefit is an absolutely key benefit that Britain's families...
So you can guarantee on this programme it's safeguarded if you're re-elected?
No, absolutely. We've said that child benefit is absolutely a vital benefit for people, but we do need to find overall savings on the welfare budget. What our programme entails is for 2 more years, saving £1 out of every £100 the government spends. Now, the alternative to that is either much more borrowing, putting the economy at risk, or reaching into people's pay packets as Labour plan and cutting their pay. I don't want to do that. And I think the country supports the idea of reducing some unnecessary welfare spending and making sure that we keep people's taxes down at the same time.
I want to move you on to the NHS. Forgive me, but we've got an awful lot to cover. This is from Dr. Andy Hershen on Twitter. He says, my job as a GP is becoming soul-destroying due to increased demands and needs, yet David Cameron is offering seven appointments. Where are these extra GPs going to come from? What do you say to Dr.
Well,
Andy
the extra GPs, already we've got over 1,000 more GPs than when I became Prime Minister. The extra GPs...
You became Prime Minister 5 years ago.
Yes, absolutely.
A long time ago.
Well, that's more GPs, because we've increased spending on the health service every year.
How many have left the NHS?
Well, net, there are more GPs. Obviously, every year some people retire, but there are more GPs working. But to answer the question very directly, we are going to fund the Simon Stevens NHS plan in full because we've taken difficult decisions on other areas of spending, more money into the NHS every year.
And that's fully funded. That
is fully funded. We've already got what's called the Prime Minister's Challenge Fund, which pays GPs to volunteer, if they want to provide this 7-day cover. I think people watching at home will love the idea of your GP surgery being open 8 in the morning till 8 in the evening, 7 days a week. That's already available to millions of people in our country. If I'm Prime Minister, it will be available to everyone in our country.
On a personal level, you've been working very hard, as people would expect. Are your family missing you, but they haven't seen much of you in the last 3 weeks?
Well, I'm lucky that I live above the shop, as it were. I live above the office, so I had brief bird of porridge with the children this morning. But obviously there's some pressures on family life at the moment, but they're very supportive.
You do live up at the shop. I mean, your family, your wife and your children have had a very normal life up in number 10. Have you had that conversation yet with your children that they might be moving in the next
They know what this election, well, they don't know everything the election's about, but they know it's the blue team versus the red team, and they want Daddy to win, and they know what happens if that happens, and they know what happens if other things happen. So
how are they feeling about that? If they have to pack up their bedroom,
they're very supportive. My Florence, who's only 4, she keeps saying, "Has the election finished yet, Daddy?" Because I suppose rather like some people, she thinks it's gone on for a long time. But look, it's so important, this election. The outcome is so crucial for the future of our country. Forward with the Conservatives, keeping the country at work, making sure we get people's taxes down, or putting it all at risk with Labour. It's such a big choice that I don't think it's wrong to have a long election campaign. It's right to give people the maximum amount of time.
Even if your daughter says it is.
Even if my 4-year-old, who's very wise, says, every night, is it over yet?
Mr. Cameron, thank you very much for your time
My
this
pleasure.
evening.
Thank you.